1. Doggerland. Let's talk about a massive, vibrant world that completely vanished overnight beneath the freezing waves of the North Sea. Before the oceans rose, this wasn't just a tiny island. It was an enormous, sprawling landmass that perfectly connected Great Britain to mainland Europe. This was a thriving paradise for early hunter-gatherers, packed with rolling hills, thick marshlands, and dense, lush forests. The catastrophic natural event that wiped out this ancient society wasn't just a slow trickle of melting ice caps, but a sudden, violent megatsunami triggered by a massive underwater landslide known as the Storegga Slide. If you want to picture the sheer scale of this place, imagine a modern shopping mall parking lot, but multiply that by about 100 million. It was roughly the size of the entire state of Florida, completely paved over with green wilderness instead of concrete. Visually, it was a striking landscape of deep brown peat bogs, vibrant green canopies, and winding blue river networks that stretched as far as the eye could see. The real power is in the mud. Surprisingly, the power of Doggerland is how its thick, oxygen-deprived seabed clay has perfectly preserved the delicate history of the people who lived there. The ocean locked away their secrets in a watertight vault. To understand the danger, think of it like building a beautiful sandcastle just a few inches from the shoreline. It seems perfectly safe until the tide subtly shifts. But for the humans living there, the reality was incredibly terrifying. The rising sea levels slowly encroached on their hunting grounds, forcing them to constantly migrate until the final, catastrophic wave struck. The ocean literally waited for the ice age to end, stockpiling meltwater. When the underwater cliff off the coast of Norway collapsed, the sea ambushed the coastline. A towering wall of freezing water chased the remaining inhabitants inland. It didn't just wash over the land, it aggressively attacked the soil, ripping up ancient trees by their roots and violently tearing the landscape apart until nothing but water remained. Fishermen today regularly drag their nets across this sunken world, and they don't just pull up fish. They routinely pull up massive, fossilized mammoth skulls and perfectly carved bone harpoons used by people who didn't even know the ocean was coming for them. If you think a sunken wilderness is wild, the next one is even bigger, steeped in ancient mythology, and built completely out of stone. Dwarka. Let's talk about the legendary Golden City of Lord Krishna, a place that scientists and historians thought was nothing more than an ancient fairy tale. Located off the western coast of India in the Gulf of Khambat, this was a sprawling, wealthy metropolis of grand palaces and bustling streets. For centuries, the ancient texts described a magnificent city swallowed by the sea, but it wasn't until marine archaeologists started diving into the murky depths that they realized the myths were entirely true. The catastrophic natural event that wiped out this society was a combination of massive tectonic shifts and sudden, aggressive sea level rise that dragged the entire civilization underwater. When you try to visualize Dwarka, imagine a towering stack of modern shipping containers stretching on for miles. That is the massive scale of the stone walls and geometric foundations resting on the seabed. Visually, the site is a striking mix of heavily weathered, gray sandstone blocks covered in vibrant green and yellow marine algae, creating a beautiful but eerie underwater ghost town. Surprisingly, the power is the architectural precision. The real power of this city is how its massive stone blocks were engineered to interlock perfectly, surviving thousands of years of churning, violent ocean currents without completely falling apart. Think of the danger like a slow leak in your bathroom sink that you ignore for a week. It's annoying, but you can manage it. But for the humans of Dwarka, this water didn't stop. The ocean steadily rose, swallowing their homes, their temples, and their entire way of life, forcing massive panic and a desperate evacuation. The Arabian Sea didn't rush in all at once, it waited patiently. It spotted the weaknesses in the city's coastal defenses and slowly ambushed the lower levels. The churning tides chased the citizens to higher ground, while the crushing weight of the water attacked the foundations of the palaces, systematically dismantling the massive stone columns piece by piece. Marine archaeologists have discovered massive stone anchors scattered all over the site, proving that this wasn't just a religious center, but an incredibly advanced, bustling international seaport long before modern ships ever existed. As fascinating as a holy city is, The next one was absolutely crawling with the most dangerous criminals on the planet before the Earth swallowed it whole. 3. Port Royal. Let's talk about the wickedest city on Earth, a pirate paradise that was violently erased from the map in a matter of minutes. Located on a sandy spit of land in Jamaica, this was the ultimate haven for swashbucklers, smugglers, and outlaws who spent their days drinking and gambling their stolen wealth. The catastrophic natural event that wiped out this society was a massive earthquake in 1692, followed immediately by a terrifying process called soil liquefaction, where the solid ground literally turned into a giant pool of quicksand. To grasp the size of this lost world, picture a busy, modern international airport. Now imagine that entire airport packed entirely with brick taverns, grand mansions, and heavily armed forts. Visually, underneath the turquoise Caribbean water, you can still see the striking red bricks of the sunken buildings, covered in a brilliant crust of coral and colorful sea sponges. The real power is time suspension. Surprisingly, the power of Port Royal's destruction is that it acted like an instantaneous flash freeze, preserving the exact moment of the disaster down to the smallest detail. The danger is usually like standing on a slightly unstable waterbed. You lose your balance, but you just fall over. But for the humans in Port Royal, the solid ground beneath their feet instantly turned to liquid. Buildings didn't just fall over, they sank straight down into the earth, trapping people inside their own homes as the ocean rushed in over their heads. The earthquake ambushed the city right at the height of its daily bustle. The ground waited until the taverns were full, then aggressively attacked the sandy foundation. The terrifying liquefaction chased people into the streets, only for the earth to open its mouth and swallow them. Then, a massive tsunami spotted the wreckage and washed over the rest, dragging half the city into the dark water. When divers first explored the ruins, they found an actual pocket watch buried in the sand. The hands of the watch were permanently frozen at exactly 11:43 a.m., recording the precise minute the earthquake struck and the city died. While pirates are definitely exciting, the next one is much older, much heavier, and guarded by statues the size of city buses. 4. Thonis Heraclean. Let's talk about the Grand Gateway to ancient Egypt, a booming metropolis of wealth and trade that vanished entirely into the Mediterranean Sea. Located at the mouth of the Nile River, this was the mandatory port of entry for all Greek ships entering Egypt. For over 1,000 years, nobody knew where it was, until it was rediscovered deep under the murky water of the Abu Qir Bay. The catastrophic natural events that wiped out this ancient society were a deadly combination of rising sea levels, violent earthquakes, and the sheer, crushing weight of their own massive stone temples sinking into the unstable clay. If you want to understand the massive scale, look at a modern double-decker city bus. The statues of the pharaohs guarding the city were taller and heavier than those buses, carved from single, solid blocks of pink granite. Visually, the site is a stunning, muddy underwater museum, with giant hieroglyph-covered slabs contrasting fiercely against the dark blue, shadowy water. Surprisingly, the power is sheer invisibility. The real power of Thonis Heraclean was its ability to hide perfectly in plain sight, just a few miles off the coast of Alexandria, burying its colossal monuments under a thick, impenetrable blanket of sand and sediment. Think of the danger like stepping into a deep, sticky mud puddle in your backyard. Your shoe gets stuck, and it's a hassle. But for humans living here, the ground beneath their magnificent temples slowly gave way. The earth liquefied beneath them, bringing down massive stone roofs and crushing everything underneath in a terrifying display of gravity. The soft clay of the Nile Delta waited for centuries, absorbing the weight of the massive monuments. Then, triggered by a massive tremor, the earth attacked. The liquefaction ambushed the foundations, and the sea chased the panic-stricken citizens onto boats. The ocean spotted the weakened city and rushed in, claiming the colossal statues and gold treasures for the deep. Divers exploring the ruins didn't just find statues, they found over 60 perfectly preserved ancient shipwrecks intentionally sunk in a massive circle, pointing to a frantic, last-ditch effort to build a barrier against the rising sea that ultimately failed. 5. Pavlopetri. Let's talk about the oldest submerged city ever discovered in the world, an incredibly organized town resting peacefully beneath the beautiful waters of the Mediterranean. Located off the southern coast of Laconia in Greece, this Bronze Age settlement was a massive hub for ancient textile manufacturing and trade. Unlike cities destroyed in a single fiery moment, the catastrophic natural events that wiped out this society were a brutal, agonizing series of 3 massive earthquakes that repeatedly shifted the tectonic plates, slowly dropping the entire city below sea level over hundreds of years. Imagine your typical modern suburban neighborhood, complete with a grid of intersecting streets, property lines, and clearly defined houses. That is exactly the size and layout of Pavlopetri. Visually, it is striking because the water is so crystal clear and shallow that you can look down and see the intricate, pale limestone foundations resting perfectly against the bright white ocean sand. The real power is in the city planning. Surprisingly, the power of this ancient settlement is its complex urban design, featuring advanced water management systems and perfectly straight roads that rival modern engineering, completely untouched by later human development. The danger is like walking on a treadmill that is slowly tilting backward. You can keep adjusting for a while, but eventually, you fall. For humans here, the ground literally dropped out from under them in terrifying, unpredictable spurts. The ocean water rushed into their living rooms and courtyards, forcing them to abandon the only home their families had known for generations. The massive fault lines beneath the Mediterranean didn't rush. They waited for centuries, building up incredible pressure. When they finally attacked, they ambushed the city's infrastructure. The ground violently shook, and the rising tide chased the merchants away. The sea spotted the empty streets and gently laid a blanket of sand over the tombs, preserving them perfectly. Because the ruins are in less than 15 feet of water, anyone with a cheap pair of goggles and a snorkel can literally float right over the ancient courtyards and look down into the actual bedrooms of people who lived 5,000 years ago. The next one is going to blow your mind, because it wasn't just a city, it was the ultimate luxury vacation resort for the wealthiest people on Earth. 6. Baiae. Let's talk about the Las Vegas of the ancient Roman Empire, a place of extreme luxury, massive marble bathhouses, and scandalous parties that sank into the Bay of Naples. Located directly over a highly active volcanic zone in Italy, this was where emperors like Nero and Julius Caesar built their magnificent summer vacation villas. The catastrophic natural event that wiped out this society wasn't a sudden explosion, but a bizarre geological phenomenon called breathtacism, where the underground magma chambers slowly empty and fill, causing the surface of the Earth to rise and fall like a breathing chest. Picture a modern, high-end resort with massive swimming pools, saunas, and sprawling casinos. The ruins of Baiae stretch out across a massive underwater park that is exactly that size. Visually, it is incredibly striking. The floor of the ocean is paved with intricate, black and white geometric mosaics, and beautiful, algae-covered marble statues stand tall in the dim blue light, staring blankly into the water. Surprisingly, the power is volcanic buoyancy. The real power of Baiae is that the entire city acts like a giant geological elevator, literally bobbing up and down over the centuries depending on the temperature and pressure of the magma boiling deep beneath the bedrock. The danger is like riding a slow elevator going down to the basement. You know you are descending, but you can't stop it. But for the wealthy humans living in these coastal mansions, the water began creeping over their expensive marble floors. The ocean slowly rotted away their luxurious walls, forcing the richest people in the world to abandon their priceless coastal estates to the fish. The supervolcano beneath their feet waited. It didn't erupt. Instead, it attacked the very elevation of the land. It ambushed the lavish bathhouses by slowly pulling the ground downward. The corrosive saltwater chased the Roman elites inland, while the ocean spotted the exquisite statues and swallowed them whole, completely undisturbed by the panicked retreat of the humans. Because the ground is still actively moving, the ancient city is actually currently rising back up from the depths, and certain underwater structures are much closer to the surface today than they were just 50 years ago. While Roman luxury is incredible, the next one is surrounded by fierce currents and is so controversial that scientists still furiously debate if it was even built by humans at all. 7. Yonaguni. Let's talk about a massive, mysterious stone monument resting off the coast of a remote Japanese island that completely defies explanation. Located near the southernmost point of the Ryukyu Islands, this gigantic stone structure looks like a stepped pyramid carved straight into the ocean floor. If this is indeed a lost civilization, the catastrophic natural event that wiped out this society was likely a massive prehistoric tectonic shift or a colossal megatsunami that completely flooded the land bridge, dragging the massive stone terraces into the violent, swirling currents of the Pacific. To truly grasp the size of this monolith, imagine an entire modern NFL stadium, but carved out of one single, solid block of bedrock. Visually, the monument is breathtaking, featuring sharp, 90-degree angles, massive flat terraces, and deep, dark trenches cut into the pale brown sandstone, all surrounded by incredibly clear, deep blue water. The real power is extreme ambiguity. Surprisingly, the power of Yonaguni is its ability to divide the scientific community. Some geologists swear the fierce underwater currents carved it naturally, while archaeologists argue the perfect geometric shapes and star-shaped carvings prove it is the work of an advanced, lost civilization. Think of the danger like being caught in a powerful wave pool at a water park. You get tossed around and lose your footing. But for humans who might have lived here, the reality was deadly. The massive earthquakes shook the very foundations of the earth, and the crushing weight of the ocean swallowed the land in an instant, leaving no time to escape. The violent tectonic plates of the Pacific Ring of Fire waited in the dark. When the tension snapped, they attacked the landmass. The violent tremors ambushed any ancient people living on the cliffs. The rising sea levels chased the survivors away, while the ocean spotted the massive stone terraces and permanently submerged them under incredibly dangerous, fast-moving currents. Divers exploring the monument constantly battle currents so strong they have to cling tightly to the rock face just to avoid being violently swept away into the open ocean. Our final destination isn't an ancient mystery or a natural disaster at all, but a massive, perfectly preserved city intentionally drowned by modern humans. Shicheng. Let's talk about the Lion City, a breathtakingly beautiful ancient Chinese metropolis that was deliberately wiped off the map. Located in the Zhejiang province of China, this was once a thriving, majestic center of politics and economics, featuring massive Ming and Qing dynasty architecture. The catastrophic man-made event that wiped out this society was the construction of the Xanan River Dam in 1959. The government intentionally flooded the entire valley to create a massive hydroelectric power station, sinking a 600-year-old city to the bottom of a giant artificial lake. Imagine hundreds of football fields pushed together, completely covered in massive stone arches, towering pagodas, and intricate courtyards. That is the massive scale of what lies at the bottom of Qingdao Lake. Visually, it is an absolute masterpiece. The dark, emerald-green fresh water surrounds perfectly intact stone dragons, lions, and phoenixes carved into the walls, completely untouched by the sun. Surprisingly, the power is total preservation. The real power of Shicheng is that the fresh, deep water acts as a perfect, oxygen-free time capsule, protecting the ancient wooden beams and intricate stone carvings from the wind, rain, and sun that would have otherwise eroded them to dust. The danger here is like filling up your bathtub, but you absolutely cannot turn the faucet off. The water just keeps rising. For the 300,000 humans who lived in the valley, the danger was absolute displacement. They had to pack up generations of their family history and abandon their ancestral homes, watching helplessly as the water slowly swallowed their entire world. The man-made floodwaters didn't rush in with a bang, they waited as the dam doors closed. Then, the water systematically attacked the valley. The rising lake ambushed the city walls, inch by inch. The dark water chased the villagers up into the mountains, while the lake spotted the majestic archways and quietly swallowed them whole in the freezing depths. Because the water is totally devoid of corrosive salt and destructive marine life, the intricate wooden staircases and massive stone gates look exactly the same today as they did the moment the city was abandoned over 60 years ago. We have reached the end of our journey exploring all lost cities swallowed by the ocean ranked worst to best.